Please bear in mind that this video was created right after the second episode of Alien Earth was released, so there will be mild spoilers. Now, Alien Earth introduced us to two absolutely fresh artificial life forms, hybrids and cyborg. While we will talk about cyborgs in another video, you and I have gathered here to talk about Wendy, the first ever hybrid, who's basically a synthetic with a human mind and consciousness, developed by Prodigy Corporation of Kavalier, with the intention to improve human life and eliminate death itself, while ensuring that artificial intelligence-based synthetics don't take over the world, a problem that David posed in Ridley Scott's later prequel movies. Now, Wendy is more than meets the eye, and she's nearly a superhero-like character in the show, someone who can jump from cliffs to make superhero landings. She can hear far beyond human range, sense xenos, and control all kinds of technology while sitting a vast distance away. So without extending the intro a lot, let's get to understand the intricacies of Wendy's super body. But before I begin, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those two small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos. And now, let's begin. Number 1. Wendys backstory before becoming a test subject. When we first see Neverland in the series, we meet a young girl named Marcy, who is speaking with her mentor and trainer Kirsch, a synthetic played by Timothy Oliphant. The girl looks at a scorpion in a glass bowl but doesn't understand what it is. Kirsch helps, but you know how it is. We fear what we don't understand, and she initially wants Kirsch to squash the scorpion, but changes her mind after he implores her to see things from its perspective. Then comes Dame Sylvia, played by Essie Davis, who takes Marcy for the procedure that would change her body and life forever. Literally forever, because she's gonna be turned into a hybrid, a synthetic with a human mind. But the question is, what was her life like before she was made to undergo this procedure? Well, Marcy's full name is Marcy Hermit, and she was loved by her brother and her father, but then she was diagnosed with an incurable form of cancer. Naturally, she had only a few weeks or months to live, but that has changed because Kavalier and his company, Prodigy, were looking for a young test subject for their hybrid program. Now, although Marcy's body was failing her, her mind was sound. In fact, she showed more maturity and understanding than most kids her age. Kavalier made Marcy's father an offer he couldn't refuse, and in the aftermath, Marcy was taken to Prodigy City, where she was prepared for the procedure. Interestingly, Marcy's dad told everyone, including his son, that Marcy passed away. In fact, they even held a funeral for her. Clearly, Prodigy wanted to erase Marcy on paper, and they wanted no one from the outside world to know what they were doing with her. At least not until the procedure was complete and Marcy had successfully become a hybrid. Needless to say, the boy genius convinced Marcy's dad to give up his daughter by promising that he would fix her, that he would give her a new lease on life, and that too, in a way that most of us could only dream of. And once the procedure was complete, Marcy lost her human form and body to become Wendy, who had Marcy's brainwave activity, neurological pathways, and consciousness. Basically, all of Marcy's cerebral and psychological data was transferred into the synthetic that Marcy took to calling Wendy, and this essentially killed Marcy to give birth to Wendy. Although people believe that Wendy is not a human any longer, she begs to differ, but more on that later. Number 2. How old is Wendy in Alien Earth? In the first episode, after Wendy came into existence, we see her sitting with Kirsch and Dame Sylvia, where they were trying to analyze how Wendy was doing. Here, Wendy complains, pointing at her breast, that those things move around when she runs, and it clearly makes her uncomfortable. Dame Sylvia explains that she was now in an adult's body, and the breasts came complementary with it. Okay, I made that last bit up, but the truth is that everything was new and different for Wendy. Marcy is essentially living inside her, and she has the cognitive abilities of a 12-year-old child, because that's the age she was when she turned into Wendy. And that's why Wendy initially acted her age, her mental age, while still living in a big girl body, as she calls it. So that's the conundrum, a child stuck in an adult's body. This is more noticeable in other hybrids like Adarsh Gaurav's Slightly and Jonathan Ajayi's Smee, who were also kids turned into adult hybrids. In fact, Adarsh is absolutely childlike, kind of like the child persona of James McAvoy in M. Night Shyamalan's Split movie. In one of the scenes, we even see Kavalier reading a bedtime story to Slightly. And what was he reading? Well, J.M. Barrie's classic novel Peter Pan and Wendy, which Disney later adapted into the movie called Peter Pan. And now that Disney owns the Alien franchise as well, you'll get to see a lot of these references. However, I'm glad that Disney didn't try to Disneyfy the movie by making it bloodless. Furthermore, you can draw certain parallels between these hybrids and Andy, the android from Alien Romulus, who serves as a surrogate brother to the protagonist after being reprogrammed by her father. Moving on, let's talk about Wendys
Old Age. They all do.
Number 3. Superhuman Strength. From the very beginning, Wendy has shown exceptional abilities, so much so that if she had been created by Marvel, she'd be a near Omega level mutant or something. Yeah, after she wakes up, we see her sitting in the middle of a steep cliff. When Dame Sylvia calls for her, she jumps down from where she was sitting, and by the looks of it, it looked at least as high as a 10-story building. Wendy jumps and lands on her 2 feet, like a cat jumping from your bed on the ground. Nimble and perfect. Almost superhero entry type. Needless to say, a little something like gravitational impact. Wendy doesn't care about that. Next, she even shows off her lightning fast speed. A few moments later, she's informed by Dame Sylvia that other children have arrived, and she would have to serve as their big sister. A responsibility Wendy was happy to perform. When she actually goes to meet them, she tries to break the ice by letting 2 kids hang on each of her arms. Kinda like the horizontal version of a merry-go-round. Now this is interesting, because if we assume each of the kids to be like 35 kilos, she's able to hold 70 kilos easy on each arm. And let me remind you, her hands are stretched out. And it's easier to lift weight with our palm and wrist than holding the same amount of weight the way Wendy was doing. So in extreme cases, this limit would increase manyfold. Maybe by 5 times at least. Number 4. How intelligent is Wendy? Well, as I mentioned earlier, Wendy is nothing like the other kids in the series. I mean, even as Marcy, she showed advanced emotional intelligence, and could actually differentiate between the right and the wrong, or at least she tried. Having grown up with a family that loved her, she never had any serious childhood trauma or emotional baggage, and this allowed her mind to grow, even as a human. However, as Wendy, she was far more intelligent. In fact, Boy Kavalier himself agrees to this. In one of the scenes, we see the boy genius and Dame Sylvia talking about the larger questions of life, and how they need to improve the quality of life now that they'd beaten death itself. Sylvia was like, they didn't simply want immortal consumers, and to this, Kavalier says that he was not after money or ego. He really wanted humanity to grow as a species and become smart. In that, he says he did give Wendy a supercomputer for her brain. So yeah, she's pretty smart and knows what she's doing. She's even good with people, including children. Not only does she calm their hearts down when they ask her about the procedure to become a hybrid, she also got her way with Boy Kavalier when she wanted to go out there and look for her brother, who was helping the survivors and the wounded as a medic, but ended up becoming the target of the Xenomorph. Furthermore, while other hybrids act childlike, Wendy behaves more or less like a mature adult, and it might be because of this supercomputer for a brain that she has. In times to come, I mean in the future episodes, Wendy would really put her intelligence on display, and you and I'll drop our jaws in awe. That may be a bit of an exaggeration, but you get the point, right? Moving on. Number 5. Is she generating human hormones? Is Wendy special even among other hybrids? Now, there were a few scenes in the 2 premiere episodes that kinda tell us that Wendy might just be different from the other hybrids. Of course, there's the mind thing, but she's been showing genuine human emotions, and even her body language is very human. So Dame Sylvia admits in one of the scenes that she's being given hormones, so that her body and mind work in sync, and this is also the wish of the boy genius, who sees the body as a vessel of the mind and wants to push the human potential. But in order to do that, Wendy must be and feel like a human first. Later, when she goes to Boy Kavalier to let her seek her brother out, he doesn't agree to it outright, and that infuriates Wendy. You could see her super pissed off, and Kavalier admits that if he didn't know better, he would say she was human. So it seems that Wendy, the first ever hybrid, will be different from the rest, and this follows a 13-year-old alien trend. Even David from the Prometheus movie was the first David model to have been commissioned, and look what he did. Number 6. How can Wendy manipulate technology? In one of the scenes, she does something no one knew she could. Wendy interacts with and manipulates technology that was far, far away from her. I'll explain this in a bit. You see, Wendy's human brother Joe had gotten a seat at a medical school on Mars, which, by the way, is owned by Weyland-Yutani in Alien Earth, and he had to leave immediately. Now, he still had 7 months to serve as a medic for Prodigy according to his contract, so he comes with a request to have his contract terminated, but Wendy was watching him. You see, she'd been given permission to watch him whenever she wanted to. They had a long-running gag from one of the Ice Age movies.
Now surrender your ship, or face my fury.
Or face your furry what?
Not furry, fury! Fire!
So when Joe says, "face my fear" to the computer, Wendy makes it say, "face your furry what?" Hence, she basically hijacks the android and makes it do her bidding by rewriting the code. And she could do it simply by touching the tab through which she was looking at Joe. Kavalier's tech guy explains that she was connected to the Prodigy network so that she could keep a tab on her. And since data flew both ways, she was able to manipulate the data and control the machine. This basically means that she can control any and all machines she wants to in Prodigy City. As you can see, the implications are immense. In fact, even Kavalier was left astounded. He was wondering if they gave her such a skill. Additionally, on multiple occasions, she was able to pull video files from screen to screen like you swipe reels while doom scrolling. Okay, maybe you don't doom scroll, I do sometimes. Not proud of it. Self-bashing aside, let's now understand. Number 7. How can Wendy sense the xenomorph around her? Well, the answer to this one lies in her ability of super hearing. The typical human hearing range is between 20 Hz and 20,000 Hz. This means humans can perceive sound with frequencies within this range. Sounds with frequencies below 20 Hz, such as those created by elephants and whales, are considered infrasonic, and those above 20 Hz, such as those created by dolphins and bats, are ultrasonic. Now, during one of her tests, she demonstrates that she was able to hear frequencies up to 77,000 Hz. The test couldn't be completed because she located her brother going into the bowels of the crash-landed USCSS Maginot, but I'm sure she can hear far beyond 77,000 Hz and even infrasonic frequencies. Now, this is precisely the reason why, in the show, she could hear the xenomorph around her. She heard the buzzing and screeching sounds, which no one else could hear, not even her hybrid siblings. This is another reason why she's special among the other hybrids. Number 8. Is Wendy immune to xenomorphs? To answer this question, let's look at how synthetics are immune to xenomorphs, and at the end of the day, Wendy is essentially a synthetic, as in her body is. Although our mind is responsible for the emotion of fear, it's our bodies that react by an increased heart rate, release of hormones, etc. One of the stranger quirks of a synthetic's design is how they sometimes get a free pass from xenomorphs. Under certain conditions, an android can be right in the line of fire and walk away untouched, while any human in the same spot would already be halfway to a resin wall. Annalee Call and Auton once fell into the water just a few meters from a cloned drone aboard the USM Auriga, and nothing happened. The thing didn't chase, didn't strike, didn't even seem to care. Katya managed something similar on BG-386, staying alive for quite a while in the middle of a swarming research facility without making much effort to hide. She did take damage, possibly from a xenomorph encounter, but clearly not enough to take her down. Even the drone that terrorized Sevastopol Station seemed to ignore the Seegson working Joes patrolling the place. Though some dismantled units suggest that this hands-off approach isn't guaranteed. Bishop's experience in the Aliens novelization is one of the more telling cases. While crawling through a duct toward the colony uplink tower, a xenomorph reached for him through an opening. He froze, and the creature immediately lost interest. His theory was that they key in on more than movement. They respond to some biological trait living beings have that synthetics lack. He also thought that a passive android is dismissed as machinery, whereas a human would still be seen as prey no matter how still they stood. Weyland-Yutani scientists have even discussed using this to their advantage, dropping synthetics into nests to collect specimens. The odds of a facehugger successfully implanting in a synthetic are tiny, but the idea was that one could carry the parasite out alive for study. Some comics and the more recent Alien vs. Predator games back this up with the suggestion that xenomorphs track prey through pheromones. Without those chemicals, synthetics don't show up on the aliens' radar, so they are ignored unless they move suddenly or get in the way. That said, this immunity isn't bulletproof. Bishop learned that the hard way when the first Acheron Queen tore him in half aboard the Sulaco. He hadn't threatened her, but the situation was anything but normal. Her hive had just been destroyed and she was stranded and furious, and Bishop was standing between her and escaping. In cases like the shop steward's android militia or Casper Nordling's research facility, synthetics have been treated as fair game during infestations. Even in the show, when Slightly comes close to the ovomorphs, they don't sense his presence, or at least they don't see them as a potential host. But that changes when Joe gets too close. So while they might dodge a xenomorph's attention in the right circumstances, there's no guarantee the truce will hold, especially when the alien has a reason to make an exception. Number 9. The difference between normal synthetic and hybrid. The Alien franchise has always had a thing for artificial life. It's not all acid blood creatures and derelict ships, and that's been the case right from the first film. The series has been playing with the idea of synthetics and where they fit in a human-dominated universe. Ash on the Nostromo looked like just another crew member until the big reveal that he was a Weyland-Yutani plant, and not even human at all. Since then, we've had Bishop, who earned the crew's trust, and David, who used his synthetic existence to muse on life, death, and creation like some rogue philosopher. Alien Earth takes that long-running thread and pushes it into new territory. This time, the spotlight is on Prodigy's research facility, where terminally ill children have their consciousness moved into fully synthetic adult bodies. That makes them hybrids, who are not quite human, not quite machine, but with a human mind at the core. It's a third category alongside cyborgs, who are heavily augmented humans, and traditional synthetics, who are built from scratch but possess sentience. Cyborgs are also fresh ground for the franchise. We meet one early, in fact in the form of Moro, played by Babu Sise, who is a Weyland-Yutani security officer in the Maginot. He's augmented enough to upload vast data directly to his brain, and while the details of how he became a cyborg are left vague, it's obvious he doesn't quite see himself as human anymore. In fact, he treats other humans with the same detached superiority they sometimes aimed at him. The show even flips expectations. On a ship with both a cyborg and a synthetic, it's Morrow who's entrusted with securing alien life forms for delivery, not the android. Hybrids and cyborgs share one thing that sets them apart from synthetics. Both started life as biological humans. But Prodigy is betting on hybrids as the real future. A synthetic body doesn't age, doesn't get sick, and as long as the mind is intact, it's effectively immortal. That kind of edge could decide which corporation comes out on top in a world where survival is as much about boardroom victories as it is about surviving in deep space. Alien Earth opens with a blunt statement: immortality will be won in one of three forms: androids, cyborgs, or hybrids. Whichever prevails will determine who rules the universe. The show wastes no time in showing how these groups interact with regular humans, and with each other. On the Maginot, the crew eye the ship's synthetic with suspicion, while treating Morrow more like one of their own, though not without prejudice. Morrow himself has no problem feeding that divide. When two Prodigy soldiers beg for help, he coldly reminds them he's not your brother. Back at Neverland, the hybrid children answer to Kirsch, a synthetic who seems genuinely invested in their well-being, but has no love for the humans running the program. And that raises a big question. If you can put any human mind into a synthetic body, what place do traditional androids have? The show doesn't hand out answers, but it makes sure you're asking. That was all in this one, guys. See you in the next one. And make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons, because we're gonna do a lot of Alien Earth content in the coming days.